West Coast Avengers. West Coast Avengers. Ah! Ah! Hello, St. Louis! Internet! Hi, Internet! It's your friend, Dave, West Coast Avengers. It's time for another episode of SunDAVE, Sit Down, Dooba-Doo-Boo. And today, we're talking Todd, we're talking Spider-Man, we're talking Torment, and I have a special guest. At least one special guest right now, and that's going to be our friend, and I mean our friend as a community, Naj Mansour. Hi,
Hello.
Naj.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for allowing me to be on your channel. Thank you so much. I
Of
appreciate it.
course. I'm so pleased that you're here. And we've got our friend Flush Jackson already in here. Flush is
Hello.
also part of the book club, and we're going to be talking Todd. Here I am. Rock you like a hurry, Dave. Everybody now. Hello, egg roll. You look good with some duck sauce. How are you doing, Naj?
I'm all right. Thank you, my friend. I'm all right. Thank you. How are you? How's your week?
It's good. It's been a long, fun week. You were here yesterday on the channel when
Mm-hmm.
I bought more books and stuff from that gentleman that has been selling me stuff, and it came along with a giant pile of original artwork.
Amazing. Can't wait to figure out or to know for us
Mhm.
who the artists are because there's some amazing pieces.
Yeah, yeah. The I did figure out the one piece is the Gil Kane page from Conan Annual number 6 from
Mm,
1981.
81. Wow.
Yeah, and then the other stuff, I got a lead on it. It's a lot of it's probably going to end up being Pat Broderick, who has worked in comics for, I don't know, 35, 40 years. And so I'm going to research, and hopefully by next week we'll know. Couple of little things before we get started. Doom, 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 doom. Exactly, John. Um, I dropped a video today, which I'm not saying this to get sympathy, but it is the worst received video I've ever put on the channel.
Oh.
It is a longer video. It's me and other Dave going through Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. If you're an art nerd, you're going to really want to watch this video because Dave talks process from Bernie Wrightson, is one of the greatest artists of all time. Co-created Swamp Thing, worked on the movie Creepshow. Stephen King is one of his big admirers. And so if you have an extra hour internet, please watch that video. Get us some likes, get us some comments. But other than that, today, I'm so stoked that you're here, and I'm so stoked everybody's in here. We're going to talk Todd. It's the first iteration, the first official meeting of the West Coast Avengers SunDAVE Sit Down Book Club, or we could just call it Book Club. And I would be doing a dishonor to myself and everybody else on this channel if we didn't start the book club out with some Todd. So,
True. Sit
Naj,
out, read out.
there we go. So I have a question for you, Naj.
Yes.
When was is this your first time reading this? Which I imagine it's not, but is it?
It is not, but it's been so long. It's been so long.
Okay, and it's obviously not my first time. It's not my first time reading it. Flush, as long as you're here, I don't. Your laptop. You could throw your laptop out. The Avengers assemble. That's right. That's
Mm-hmm.
right, Brian. So if this is anybody in here's first time reading this, I would love to know, just because I'd love to hear the perspective of somebody reading this for the first time. Like,
Mm.
right now, as you said, it's been a while. It's probably been
It's been a while. Like my perspective had changed. Like I asked so many questions this time, because now I'm an adult. I'm like, there's lots of things in here, that I don't know how it passed.
right, and this is probably the first time I'm reading it in over a decade, because the most recent Todd that I've reread was the Amazing Spider-Man run.
Hmm.
I reread the omnibus about 2 years ago. So I'm seeing this with fresh eyes, as as a 43-year-old, but I know this story kind of by heart. But I am interested to hear, if there is anybody in here reading it for the first time. And like I said, it's not a judgment thing. It's a perspective thing. So we're going to get all different perspectives here. Sean, yes, this is the place you can come to torment people, specifically me. Try to leave Naj out of it, but she can get a little torment. Uh,
A
and
little bit.
just a little bit. And Josh, first time in years for sure. I definitely appreciate the art and layouts a lot more than I did when I was younger.
Yes, that
Yeah,
happened to me as well.
yes, and there are actually some honest, like there's a little critique in here too for me, but overall, I do still love it just like I did as a kid. And so like okay, the cover, I
Icon.
iconic, I think, and this is my opinion, but I think it's his most iconic. I think it beats all the others, by at least a little bit, and in some terms it beats everything else by a country mile. um Nothing looked like this. Nothing looked like this when this came out,
True.
you know um and obviously you all know there's multiple covers, there's 3 different color covers, or 4 if you're including platinum, but we're going to go with the gold cover of the decade.
My favorite, my favorite
Yeah.
version of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and there was a contest going on with the cover to see who could guess the the amount of spiders that are on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember what it was that you won, but it definitely was a contest. But yeah, Dave Korea in the house. What's up, my brother? And John said he definitely went in with a little more analytical eye this time around. Sure. And all in all, this is a fun read. Naj, before we get into it, did you have fun reading it?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's a Spider-Man, one of my favorites, so I always enjoy it.
Mhm.
I love that I appreciate that there were a lot of battle scenes. The
Mhm.
art was amazing, and I mean, maybe as a child you would be interested in, like, who's winning and who's losing, but now I'm looking at it like, look at that panel, look at the art here, look at the colors there, I'm looking at it like in totally different way. So I
Mhm.
appreciated it so much.
It's funny because the panel layout, and what if you ever read, and I implore everybody, next time you go dollar bin diving, look for Todd's Infinity Ink run, because you could see him at the beginning getting really experimental with the panel layout, and then
Yeah.
they kind of told him to scale it back a little bit. But this is Todd writing,
Yes,
penciling, and inking for the first time on a book.
and I think the issue number 4 was him coloring it as well.
That's right. That's right. We will get to that.
Yes, so I think he didn't have anyone to tell him like the panels shouldn't look like this or like that. So,
Yeah.
like, look at this page, for example, like the long panels. They're amazing. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're unique.
And
And then there is lots of splash pages, and they were also very, very amazing, especially in
there's
this issue.
so much in this issue, and it's really funny. As a New Yorker, and Todd's never lived in New York, but he nails
Look
what
at
we.
this one.
Oh, it's classic. He nails what we think of as outsiders, and I can say that I've been living outside of New York for 8 years now, but he really does nail that kind of grim and gritty picture that people paint of New York. It's embellished, but I just and then getting the guy with the Yankee hat in the first panel right there, or the third panel. But yeah, this first page, when I opened this again for the first time in 10 years or whatever, this gave me goosebumps.
I believe it would. I mean, look at it. Look at, like, to be honest, not just like the proportion of Spidey, but I appreciate the way he drew the face or the head.
Mm-hmm.
Like the chin thinner than the other Spideys, and it looks just more dynamic with the feet always, curved a little bit. It's very, very dynamic, let's say.
And we get right in our face, right here. We know that this is Todd's book, he, you know,
Mhm.
he made sure that, and you know, Stan Lee being in there in the webs is really cool. You know, I love it that they used to do Stan Lee Presents. I mean, I'm sure that was part of his clause with Marvel, is that as long
Yeah.
as he worked for them, it was presented by him. What's up, Jerome? Welcome in. You just got this slab for me. He won the slab. He was the recipient of my 1,500th follower giveaway.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And I think John sums it up. If you want to talk about Todd McFarlane and why we love him so much, it's that statement right there. The best work sometimes comes from the people who don't know the rules or don't want to follow the rules.
Don't follow the rules, most
Yeah.
likely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say this. One of the thoughts about this, and I mean, I could say this at the end, but I think it's an interesting little fact to point out that I discovered. You could read this whole 5 issues back and forth 500 times. Do you know we do not ever get to know that Calypso is the name of the villain? They never
Oh
mention
no, they
her.
never mention it. Yeah.
It's
I was like trying to figure out who is she?
well, the funny thing is, I think we have another guest. Oh, Flush! There he is! In the
Hello.
flesh!
How's it going, guys? Can you hear me?
I did not realize that you were sitting in there because it
Oh.
did not.
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
that's okay. Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, that's a great point. They never mention the villain's name, and yeah, and it's quite a stretch of books, to be honest, because I think Naj mentioned it's like he's doing colors. He's kind of bouncing around a little bit throughout this whole Torment series, and like you can see him playing around a lot, especially the colorists. I think when he was in the colorist issue, you can see a lot of weird stuff in there, like blue backgrounds.
That's this issue, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I got to pull it up. But yeah, there's just there's always an amazing splash to open it.
Yes,
Really
true.
set the tone, and I think sort
True.
of the banner that he's got there. He's innovating, right? Like this is some of the stuff that is. I think when I looked at it, and I have read this before, but it's been a long time. The thing that I did when going through this time is that I figured out like, yeah, the younger version of me would have loved this, like just the way it moves, the pacing, just the action, not really caring all that much about. Oh yeah, they don't mention Calypso. It's like, whoop-de-doo. Who's who's coming out of the sewer, or who's coming out of the rubble to continue the fight, kind of thing. I think it just captures something that so few comics have, these days. Like they don't really capture that sort of like imagination in the same way. So
yeah, not even close. And I think it helps not naming her and kind of making her ominous, because you do have the Lizard, and you do have, in that issue, Craven alive from the dead. So like, don't muddle it up with too many names. Plus, like, what's better? I mean, Star Wars could have done it with what's his name, with Andy Serkis's character in Force Awakens, like Snoke. If you don't tell us who the villain is, it makes that villain scarier. What's scarier than the unknown?
Well, and also it leaves room for imagination, I think, too. Like if you need to spell it out for people, it's kind of like you go back and you talk about like if you talk about comedy. If you have to explain the joke to somebody, you're doing it wrong, right? You're not delivering the thing. And so yeah, I agree with you. I think there is some of it. Some could say, well, it's kind of nebulous and silly, but I think you're right. I think it adds an element to it for sure.
Naj, did you have something?
I was just reading the comment, which I agree to. Like that splash page of the first Torment, issue number 1.
Yeah,
that is really beautiful work. But to be honest, this whole issue has lots of iconic, like amazing Spidey art that should have been also considered iconic, if that makes sense. Like this one, that's one of my favorite, absolute favorite ones in this whole book.
we never got to see a dark Spidey. Like
Exactly.
I always said, and I, the movies are a different beast, but if we ever got some version of an adaptation of some of the darker Todd stuff on film, I would be a happy person. I'd be a kid in a candy store, you know.
You
Um,
know, even the way that Peter Parker was written in this particular issue
mhm.
was very interesting to me. Like, because Peter Parker was shown as someone who is like a little bit arrogant, like
Yeah,
I am the hero, I don't wear cape. And then there was all of this conversation about, talking to himself why he doesn't wear cape, which is better than wearing a cape.
yeah, it is. And the thing that always sticks out to me since I was, whatever, 11 when this came out, or 10, is I don't think the doom, 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 the beating of the drums really had the impression on me until I got older. And then I
Mm.
realized, like, if you can play this in your head while
While
you're reading
reading.
this, it's a trip. It is a complete trip because you're just like dum 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 dum, and like the use of the word rise keeps happening and happening, and I think it's a little overused, but
Yeah.
the doom onomatopoeia, man, it like when you get it in your head, it really sticks, and it really really does help the story.
Yeah, and after a couple pages, because it goes through the whole, 5 issues, I think. But after a couple pages, it becomes to stick to you in the background, and it's just
Hmm.
playing while you're reading.
Hmm.
It's funny how it
It's
works. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful effect.
I just, it is kind of sad that we never got more. We got the 15
Mm.
issues that he did, and then, but we're better off because we got Image, we got Spawn, we got the whole all of that. But like just keep going with the dark theme, because as it went on, it progressed. It culminates. Well, it doesn't culminate. The last full storyline culminates with the child killer in Canada with Wolverine, and that's even darker than this.
Right. Yeah. The other thing, just reading this again, there's some nuggets in here too, like Gretzky retires and Felix the Cat
Hmm.
and all that kind of stuff. Which is cool. But like, I feel like you're getting a little bit of a window into Todd's personal life.
Hmm.
I think a lot of these like slice of life scenes with Mary Jane and Spider-Man are just like, maybe they're not one to one, obviously, but they are. I imagine him and Wanda like sort of being, in these situations, and you kind of draw, you just draw something right out of your own, back pocket, so
Yeah,
to speak.
Sure.
That's how I read it.
possible.
Yeah.
There's the overall 15 issues. I think actually his 15 issues is truly is like slice of life. Like the Canada one, like you said, with the Gretzky retiring. That's in the first issue, I think. Right? He's reading the paper. Yeah.
How did you feel about Mary Jane in this whole series,
Okay.
miniseries?
Okay. So
Because
in
you know
this,
how I feel about
I
Mary Jane.
I do know you're not a fan of Mary Jane, and I will say, all right, hold on. I let's put a pin in that. I just want to read this. When I was a kid, I didn't get how it read. I didn't get how to read it more narrated than the characters talking. Feel like it was written for older readers for sure. Derek, you can never be too late for the tardy party. Trip said, definitely shades of Frank Miller, the deconstructed hero attack. And we all know that Todd loves Frank, so that's not a surprise. I think he was going for some sort of theme of rising up, but didn't. Yeah, that there's a couple of things that don't land in the rise thing. It definitely didn't do what I think he intended. So Mary Jane, what's up, Andrew? Mary Jane in this is a little too real. She's like, you know what? He's got this. I'm gonna go out and party. It actually feels almost too real. Like the last person I dated was very much like that. And yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Flush, anything to add?
I
I
don't
just
know. I don't know about
sorry.
too real, but I just felt like she's supposed to be a model, I guess, at this point
Yeah.
in the whole arc. I can't remember when that sort of happens, but they've got some money. She's out doing her thing. I don't know. It's hard to read because they're kind of married, but they're at the like they're sort of still college age, it seems like. So
Yeah, they
I don't
never
know,
age.
it adds up to me. I mean, I think you're right to say it's fairly realistic, and they're in New York City.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
bouncing to parties is probably easier than it even looks in this book, right? So I think it's kind of cool though that there's this sort of the doom thing going on, and just this horrendous sort of continuous just battle going on, and then you kind of cut to Mary Jane, and she's doing her thing, but she's worried, right? It's almost like she's got a little spidey sense going on. I don't know. It's not bad. I don't think it gets in the way.
What about you?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm itching.
Naj notoriously does not like Mary Jane, which.
Well, I'm itching to say the truth about how I feel about her. So how I feel is in this whole miniseries, we can simply cut all of the pages where there is Mary Jane, and the story will remain the same.
That is very accurate. There's no, yes and no, because it gives you just a little bit of like the slice of life that Flush was saying, because she's not exactly worried. She might be doing a lot of coke. She's definitely going out she's definitely going out at midnight. I mean, look, I had my party life in New York for a long time, and sometimes I'd come home at midnight and do the same thing. So, but
it still doesn't do anything to the story. It doesn't show anything about Peter, let's say. Like, it's not even a complementary character. Like, Peter could be a single person and not married to Mary Jane, and they will still be the same situation. You know what I mean?
John thinks that the story revolves around Mary Jane. Good call.
Yeah, they almost get there when she's in the cab, right? Like if you're reading it and you don't know what happens, you're kind of like, oh, she's gonna be bumping right into this shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so close.
Like right in there, and then it just never happens.
Yeah, that was when I realized, like, okay, so Mary Jane is not even in the same city.
Yeah, I think they're both good. I mean, and that's the thing about this stuff. It's great to hear the different interpretations of how, when we're reading it, like how we feel about that. And when I was reading it about that, I was like, oh, she just like, she trusts him implicitly that he's not going to die. But at the same time, she wants to live her own life and not be worried about it.
There's the other thing too, that they kind of like he starts like when she goes out to the nightclub and like somebody's typical nightclub stuff, right? Like someone's trying to hit on her or get close to her and like spills her drink or something like that. So there's another, you're like, oh, so something's going to go down.
Yeah.
Where Peter's just not going to be there, right? And she's going to have to handle business, or somehow this is going to dovetail. And it just never happens.
That is true. He does use her, and Josh points that out. He does use her as an anchor for like the will to keep going.
Yeah. I agree to all that, but it still could be the same if they were not in the same city.
It's true. That's true. That is true.
Tyler, that was my problem with it. Like, it feels like she's totally disconnected from this story, like the villain fighting. Like, normally they try to use her in a way, like, she get caught in the situation and Spidey tried to save her. I thought that this would be maybe nice, and I kept feeling like this is going to happen every time she's on a panel. I'm like, okay, something's gonna happen, and then I'm disappointed. Then okay, something's gonna happen, and then I'm disappointed.
But then it's also kind of a swerve, because we're used to seeing her in distress a lot of different times during his story. So maybe that's Todd's way of saying like, gotcha every time.
Maybe. I mean, I believe it's that. I believe it's that what you just said.
Let me call Todd up. Hey, bud. No. So let's talk about the Lizard, because one of the most badass McFarlane covers is the Amazing Spider-Man cover, where it's just like the real extreme close-up of the Lizard. But I feel like in this, he's even more of a beast than he ever was. And he's just ripping people to shreds right in the beginning.
Yes, that's because he is not himself,
that's
the
right.
Lizard.
Yeah.
But what I loved here is the art of the Lizard, because we have the cape, and it's drawn a lot more like Batman and the Spawn cape in some panels. And I think it looks much better, many of these panels, than the most famous Lizard cover of McFarlane.
I agree.
He's also got the Hulk pants going on, where
He
he's
does.
got the shredded Hulk pants. He's got I guess it's a lab coat. I have to wonder, like, how the hell these clothes actually last.
It's like a lab coat acting like a cape kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Every time I go to the doctor, my doctor's always wearing purple pants and a lab coat. And so I don't know. And he usually has one missing arm that he's trying to get back. But yeah, I forgot. I was quickly reminded, but I guess kind of temporarily forgotten that it is a pretty violent story. Lots of blood, there's guns, there's a lot of dead people. It just wasn't. He really did bring a sense to Spider-Man of nobody was doing anything like this. It truly, like, when people say that, oh, this person changed it and they were doing stuff that nobody was doing at the time, but this book really was unlike anything, and it sold millions and millions of copies. Like, this is at the time, it's like the equivalent of, did you go see Avatar? It's that type of thing, in our small community of comics. But I do really appreciate, even though all the blood the coloring, not the best colored blood in the world. This is clearly brown blood. So I don't know, but it starts off with the lizard rampaging, iconic, dynamic Spidey spaghetti web, swinging poses and all that good stuff. Doesn't really set much up in the way of, like, you don't know who's behind it, but you get there. Oh God, I don't know. There we go. Okay, this one is. Look at this pose. What's even happening here?
I don't know.
He's a spider. That's the thingy.
Trying to break that down too, that form. I bet you it doesn't work at all, but yeah, it still looks good to my brain. I don't know how that works.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Like the way you articulated it. That's what Todd is good at. Like, he can make these poses that nobody thought of that is even possible, and it still looks right.
Yeah. And
how? I don't know, but it still looks okay. It doesn't look like off.
Yeah, and you can't pose that, right? It's not like you don't go down to the hot yoga class and, like, take photos. It's just like not going to happen. So, yeah, it's part of his brilliance, I think, is that.
And it's engaging with your brain, because as you're looking at it, you don't, like, I don't think as a kid I registered how ridiculously crazy these poses were. But my brain was like, oh, this looks cool, not why does this look cool? And I don't remember if it was Todd, and I don't think it was Todd. How long did they have Spider-Man armpit webs for? Like, I don't remember when they started.
I don't know. Yeah, I noticed that too in these issues, and I was like, when did these start happening? And he's got the scroll flaps going. I don't know, but they're definitely in here. I don't know if they started or
they kind of like decide randomly. I don't know, like they're always on and off with these. And when did they decide to have the web shooters as well?
I don't know.
Yeah, so now here there's no shooters, and that's how it should be, because he's a spider and it's in DNA.
They went with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Tyler said Todd completely threw out anatomical limits in his art, but for Spider-Man, it just it does. Like, you couldn't have Wolverine doing this. You couldn't have Superman doing this, or even Batman. But yeah, Spider-Man makes sense, and I think there's that like, when we think of spiders in our mind, they're crawling around. So our brains as humans were just like, yeah. Mattis, what's going on? Years later, DC rips off the Doom for Doomsday. That's right, they did. That's right, the Death of Superman. And they ripped that off. I think the first cover of ASM1 has the armpit webs. Yeah, where he's like this. Does it? I don't have to. Well, I could look that up later, but I'll take your word for it.
It's possible it does have it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So AF15 also has it. So it's a Ditko thing, which.
Oh, AF15, I am sure they have it in the AF15 and the old style, but this is why I am surprised that it's here, because, was the so McFarlane worked on this before the Amazing Spider-Man, right?
No, this comes after Amazing Spider-Man.
So Amazing Spider-Man doesn't have them.
Yeah, and that's
So
what I'm thinking.
this is why I was like, okay, they're like on and off with them. So
And I don't know. I'll ask you guys both, but I look at lizard. I see part alligator, but I also see cat. Am I like imagining? I've always seen like a little bit of cat, and maybe it's the eyes, but like it's
oh,
almost like a dinosaur. It's like an amalgamated. I don't know, alligator, crocodile, cat.
and I see only like a crocodile, and the eyes of the lizard are very similar to the cat. So maybe
I
that's why.
love this design though. And then
Mm.
I started reading this, but this is a very interesting editorial by Todd. And I don't. Did you either of you get to read the letters columns on any of these books?
No. Should
Nice.
we?
Yeah, I personally went with a collected edition that didn't have any of the ephemera. So
I'll get to a very interesting letter that you guys will all have a nice little laugh at. Tyler says, I was always more of a fan naturally producing the webs in the body. Yeah, it does make the most sense, especially because he was given all these powers. Why wouldn't he be given webs as well? Snake, I see some snake too. No step on snake. His armpit webs look more like a door screen though. Agreed. Do we pass the page where Todd writes that Peter is an up-and-coming yuppie? I don't know, actually. I didn't see that. Which issue that is.
Don't know. It might be number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I do recall that dialogue, though. I was like, huh. That's why I was thinking about Todd and sort of mirroring his life a little bit, you know.
Yeah. And Dave echoes his sentiment that you said, Flush, that the armpit webs make him float like one of those flying squirrels. Yeah, of course. It's such an interesting thing. All of the ingredients that went into what we're seeing here, whether it's the character design or the story.
One thing about that character design for the lizard, one thing I noticed a lot, I mean, you'll see it in part 3, you'll see it everywhere, but part 3, his lab coat, a lot of the same shape language as he did for the Batman, where he's got the iconic, cape.
Yes.
I forget what Batman issue that is, but the iconic.
43?
Yeah.
423, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see that in here. Like you'll see
it. Yes, exactly. That was there. That was something that caught my attention.
Well, I mean, the lab coat takes up both pages of the spread. Manu's in the house. What's up, my brother? And nice
9.9.
There he is. Okay, so I don't know if anybody can point it out. I was trying to think. These have to be 2 people that he knows, but I don't know who it is. Like, these faces are way too distinguishable for them to just be random people. Like Jim Shooter, maybe. But maybe that's his dad. But these, you can look at this, and like I looked at this face, I'm like, that is somebody in Todd's life, and so is that. I love this page though, because they're just like, oh.
What about the conversation they were having before they were attacked and dead?
Yeah, they were talking about rubber vomit and the old guy's job.
They were kind of hitting the Craigslist sketchy times.
That's right. Also, they mention whenever he mentions the name Stan and Morley, I'm like, oh, who is this? Who are we talking about? Stan Lee and somebody else?
Yeah.
It's funny, and Flush knows this. Watching enough cartoonist kayfabe, like you start to realize that like everything in a comic book is an inside joke in the industry. Like when they use a name or a face, it's like there's a lot that goes into it.
And how did they get away with this conversation for kids?
I know.
That's I think that's exactly. Like some of the stuff in here is very, you can have a whole like Peter Parker as a high school kid kind of thing, and that appeals, I think, to all sort of the younger and even getting into past high school maybe. But this is a very adult.
Exactly. That was one of the things that I was like, what am I reading here? Am I still in the Spider-Man issue?
There's a lot of stuff between him and Mary Jane that are just kind of like, I'm surprised that, I'm not surprised because he had immense success, so they're going to let him do whatever, right? But
yeah. Yeah.
But it's in there. And that's something I think normally they'd be like, yeah, let's.
Well, by today's standards, but the 90s, kind of anything went, you know? Anything went. By the way, George Wendt. I do see that. I do see that. George
Well,
Wendt.
that's a good call out. Yeah, it could also be a hockey player.
Yeah.
I could kind of see that too.
Yeah, with the mustache. But it is a very interesting thing to see. So, like I said, I mean, you get to issue it's 6, 7, 8. It's the other one, the Perception storyline, and they're dealing with a child killer. I mean, he pushed the limits of storytelling in the mainstream, and then he jumps over to do Spawn, and you got Billy Kincaid as issue number 5. So you're dealing with somebody that knew how to push the envelope of PG-13 to R-rated, but you get the here's your Felix cameo right here. Let me get it.
Yeah.
It's on the jar of jam right there called Felix.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait a second. I show you mine.
The only other 2 I found were on the deli. I think it was on a deli.
There we go.
Nice.
Hold on. We got the best Felix cameo of the night right there. There we go.
And best thing ever is that this toy or this stuffed animal is from 1978.
That's an applause doll. It's still got the applause tag on it, right?
Yes.
On the ear. Yeah.
Yeah. And it got its original tag.
That's amazing.
That's from the year I was born. So there you go.
Yeah, the year before I was born.
Yes. So I was born in 1987, and in 88. Sorry, so I said maybe that I said it wrong. So this is 1989 actually. 89. When I was like 2 years old, my parents took me to pick up my first stuffed animal myself, and I picked Felix, this one, but a bigger one than that one. My parents, of course, got rid of it, but years later, I found this.
Hell yeah, cool.
As close as to the one I had.
We got her. Is an interesting character because I feel like a lot of the anime stuff has just went wild off the same style as Felix. Like there's so many things that just draw right off.
And I mean, he has such a distinct, iconic look, right?
It does. And Felix has been around for a long time, right? Like
long time.
40s, the 30s, maybe before that. I have an issue of Felix.
And
somewhere right here, actually. Hold on.
And guess what? Like I am talking about me picking up this as a kid in the 80s, and I was in Middle East.
Oh wow!
So this is not. I'm not saying like I was in Europe or So he's such a global character.
He is, and he's so global. I can't find that book. Anyway, Dave is right. Perceptions, the storyline has a Kilver yellow suit Wolverine, and it's clear that Todd really wanted to draw Wolverine in that storyline.
Has Peter ever looked more ripped than he is?
He is. He's jacked. He shouldn't have 2 muscles right there. They're on top of each other. He is jacked. And he loves that upturned nose. I do love this. Is something that I forgot how cool I like this. How much I like this panel until I reread it this week. Of him just like pulling that mask right over him.
Yeah.
He was just, and we're all, in unison. It was just doing stuff with this character that nobody had ever done anything close to it before. But here's our first look at this unnamed villainess. I like that. It's just, I always thought this was cool. I feel like this is a little ode to the Joker right there, even though it's not the Joker, but the ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But that's Rick Parker doing that, right? That's Parker doing the letters. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Todd did this? The big bold letters. I think if he did the doom doom doom, then he should have done the ha ha ha, because they are not lettered, like they are like drawn, right? Yeah, they are drawn.
It does. Yeah, it does look like it's drawn. I think, and obviously looks like a like a web. So I don't know. It's hard to really know the divisional labor on some of the stuff, but I imagine Todd just from looking at this, like especially the panels.
Yeah.
Some of them are just webbed. Some of them have different wild designs. I think his hands were all over these decisions. So if he didn't work, he certainly blessed it in some fashion.
And you just look at the 1, 2, like look at the poses just on these 2 pages. You've got the perch, I still don't know what happens in this panel, and I've been trying to figure that out for 30 years. Did somebody, like, are we supposed to believe that maybe the lizard kicked him off of the building?
I don't think so. I think it's just showing him losing control.
Yeah.
He's kind of just, I don't know, more or less just kind of blacking in and out, with his spider sense or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a weird kind of.
He was not feeling well. I think that's the thing here.
Yeah. But I don't know how else you could have conveyed that anyway. So he took a shot, and I think this panel is the one, very few misses on this storyline. But then he, the pose here, this crazy, like, going through a window pose. It's just, there's so much.
The window, going through the window is just epic. Look at that. There's just so much debris. I mean, he's got the squirrel flaps going. He's got even the shades, like for the blinds, like the tassel. There's just a ton of energy in that.
There's lots of detail. There's lots of details throughout the whole issue.
Mm-hmm. And it really does, like, as a movie, just in the way that movie scripts are written and the way that the flow of action, this thing flows so well. There's, like, no point where you're just bored. Even if you don't like Mary Jane, like, there's really no boring part to this story. When it needs to breathe, it breathes. When it needs to go 100 miles an hour, like this, where he's going after the lizard and realizing that there's something up, like, there's no reason, like, there's no reason the lizard should be acting like this, like a monstrous animal. But I remember reading this and, like, not really understanding what was going on, and that it's really exactly what it's supposed to do. You're not supposed to understand. You're supposed to be really confused.
Yeah, you're supposed to imagine as well.
Yeah. All right, so Tyler said he perceived it as a spider sense just tossing him as a violent reaction to how, so echoing what you guys both said, and then I guess that seems more right. Dave said something of note is these pages have full bleed black. Yeah, the black behind the panels to the edge, and Image did it a bunch, but Marvel books didn't. Yeah, that it's true, because there's
it suits it. It's great.
You can see it really well in the collected edition that I'm looking at. Like,
yeah.
I mean, in fact, one of the covers, it's almost like they took I don't know what they did for it, but I mean, it really looks almost like a scan of something that was a little bit, you know how you'll get, like, paste ups and stuff like that.
Sure.
It had a quality to that with some of the blacks that I'm seeing. Like, I don't know how they, kind of made the digital side of the collected edition, but yeah, it looks exactly like that. Like they were doing full bleeds and lots of
the
stuff,
full bleed really gives it a darker feel, which makes sense. I mean, it's like, it's all this book. If I was going to say one thing to complement this entire experience reading this is full sensory aesthetics. Like, this pleases every piece of my senses visually and just my brain, like, looking at it, and it's exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's just, we don't have Spider-Man in the black costume anymore, but we have the darkest Spider-Man we could get.
On the previous page, 2 pages back, where it says with the lizard flying through the window.
Yeah.
That panel on the top left. In the version that I have, you can see the eyeball, like the lizard eyes are completely different than the actual blacks that were filled in. Like, so, in fact, all of it, like his clothing, the lizard, everything that is part of the lizard that you can actually see looks like it's pasted, which is really interesting.
Interesting. There's different shades. You could see the shading different here on the printed page. This was another thing about this book. These were This is not your typical Marvel paper, nor is it the newer, like the stuff that they transition to. This, to me, like the feel of it and the look of it is the best of the Marvel paper that we had in that time period. And like once again, he kills a lizard. Lizard's not going to die. There's a lot of blood, but the doom stops, and then he turns around and the lizard's gone. So it's interesting also the different shades of red and not red that they use for the blood in just the first 2 issues. So that was, oh, we're not done. My bad. That's not the end of the second issue.
It also it reminded me of that last one where he's busting through so much stuff. I can't even reference whatever else. But like he's got that Hulk gray going for some of the stuff that really reminds me of some of the work they did on the Hulk, like some of the lines and some of the stuff.
The chaos and the Hulk stuff. Now, here's my only gripe, and I had it with this specific page. As a New Yorker, there is no there's no club, there's no nightclub that looks like a storefront for a stationery store in New York City. That is a stationery store to me.
That was utterly confusing. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
But, also, by the way, just noticing it now, Mary Jane wearing purple and green. So maybe she's the lizard. We never see them in the same place at the same time.
Ooh.
Truth.
But
Maybe.
we get this is another iconic panel. Without the text, like the him just lurking on the water tower.
That one. Love that one.
Man, you could read the last 4 years of Spider-Man and it won't be as cool as this single panel.
Yeah.
From you mean from today?
Yeah.
I would imagine it's not going to come close to any of this stuff. So
no. All right, so we got some bioweb answers. Spidey got biowebs when he mutated in the 2003 Spider-Man disassembled storyline. He mysteriously lost them in 2007 after One More Day story and never to be mentioned again. Marvel, you're weak.
Truth.
Oh, look at this one. Now, see there, you get some of that crazy layouts with the webs and a
that profile face. I love it. And it's really iconic to McFarlane, like the way he shows the nose with a thin chin and big eyes, and still looks good.
Yeah, his profiles are perfectly iconic for him. Some people don't like the nose. I like the nose that he does.
I like it.
The nose.
It makes sense. It makes sense. There should be a nose.
Yeah. But the one thing, and here comes the raining blood.
Oh, I love this.
So I guess back to that other panel, are we saying that there's a fairly large contingency of people that just want an oval? Like a flat face or something?
I guess. I don't know. I've seen some people talk about like they don't like that. And yeah, the tuft of hair. Don't worry, Ryan. It's okay to be late. You know why? We love you anyway. Yeah, the tuft of hair peeking through. It's just a nice added touch to show, battle damaged Spidey. Because
yes, there's lots of amazing detail to the costume when it gets damaged in this issue. And I really appreciated every single panel because it's not just like Spider-Man has this kind of simple outfit to make it easy to draw throughout, the whole panels, let's say. That's why they put the costume on and make it like as simple as it could be. But then in this issue particularly, he goes with a lot of like details showing the damage, not just the hair, but then the masks, and it's amazing. It's really
the lower half of the mask, and then you got some ribs. I mean, it's to show also, it's to give us some stakes, like raise the stakes. He's getting messed up, he's getting beat up, he's this, I mean, to me, this is just a great story of Spider-Man getting his ass kicked over and over and over. Bishop said, yeah, the web border connecting. And once again, I implore anybody in here, it's like a 20-something issue run of Infinity Inc. that Todd does when he becomes a professional at DC. And the panel layout, they asked him, they said, you have to stop doing this crazy layout. And it's amazing. The story doesn't read that great, but if you want to see early Todd doing crazier stuff than just the web bordering, you got to read Infinity Inc. Hello, Amber. You just got off work. You missed. It's the book club, so we're about to finish up issue number 2 of our Todd father, the Toward the Lord Torment. And then last page. I mean, look at that. Nobody ever did the lizard like that. Nothing came close. I mean, it's beast-like. It's horror. I love it.
And here, you can see that Batman shape language like up in the top here. Yeah. Which, I don't know. It's just great. And then some of this stuff too is like, he doesn't overburden it with like sometimes when you have these stories, they try to portray like your hero is going through some kind of psychological, effect. Like I think the rain, I think a lot of this stuff, everything that's going on here it doesn't lose you. Like you realize that he's poisoned. There's something going on, but it's not like it doesn't go like Trad Moore, right? Like
no, or it doesn't go David Lynch. It's confusing enough to make you feel what Spidey's going through, but not confusing enough to actually confuse you. I get that. By the way, what did Ryan just said when he puts on the suit, he's not human anymore. Transition to another kind of being when McFarlane draws Spidey. The odd nose adds to that. Can't disagree with that. That is true. These issues are an average of 9.2 grade. And it is very so visceral. Don't worry, Amber. We'll get you a formula. You can work out the numbers. What I did enjoy, by the way, if anybody has a copy of Comics Interview number 81 lying around, I will be happy to buy it from you. It's one of the few Todd pieces I don't own. But I did was checking this out, and that it's crazy to think that in a back column, they were advertising you could buy stuff from other companies, which Marvel would never do that now. So much as they put an advertisement for the store that Todd and his brother-in-law owned just about 15 miles from where I live, called the Spider's Web, which no longer exists, but there is a reason why I find a lot of Todd McFarlane autographed comics in the collections I buy, because check this out. You ready? There's a number that they talk about here. Okay, so in speaking of favorite comic shops, do we mention that the Spider's Web they sold 24,000 copies of Spider-Man #1, all signed by Todd.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like there's 24,000 raw copies of Spider-Man #1 floating around that came from that store from Todd. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
So for my opinion, and this is my show, so maybe it matters. I think this is I think this is my least favorite cover.
Well, what I like about it is the Spider-Man on the top in reversed.
Definitely the best part about the cover.
My least favorite cover, but I think it's my favorite issue. It could might be my favorite issue.
Well, the middle of the story is either, if it's a good story, the middle's usually going to make you, like feel the most. It's the arc. It's the beginning of the end. So, yeah, look at this thing. I mean, he is getting tossed around by the lizard.
Look at the detail. I mean, I don't know how many days did they give him to draw every issue?
He was on time. I don't remember this being late, so he was turning him around in a month.
I don't know, a month. Like, I don't know how long I would need to draw such a splash page.
Yeah, it is kind of impressive that the amount of detail in his work. I mean, he's, there's other people that are more detailed than him, but for a Marvel book to look this way and to have this much work put in and then, come out on time. Yeah, I don't know. He was working like a maniac.
Yeah, and again, the pose of the tackle, like that is extremely hard to pull off. Like Peter looks like he's being tackled pretty hard.
Yeah, it's almost like it almost looks like a perfect football tackle.
Yeah.
He's getting him in the midsection.
Maybe reference something like that, but I mean, it's again pulling it off like it's the feet look right, the the calves, everything. It's just kind of mind boggling, to be honest.
Yeah, there is a layout formula to the first few pages of every issue because it opens with a double page splash and then it goes into it. But you know what? That's smart because like your brain is already going to be familiar with how you should be reading this. And one of my biggest problems on a lot of comics, and I'm sure this goes for anybody that's cognizant of what they're reading, there are some comics that are almost unreadable because the layout is bullshit. And the one that I always go to of stuff that I'm currently reading, sometimes I get mad at something is killing the children because I can't follow what's going on. I'm like, and then
that's a common complaint. Yeah, that book actually gets that complaint a lot.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. But I never have that with Todd, and I never had that with this book. And Marvel comics definitely follow a formula, but this was a guy making up his own formula. But yeah, so it's still in the battle between the two of them. We know that somebody's in a church or a building somewhere in Manhattan, elsewhere in the city, behind all this. Now, I honestly I have one actual complaint about this story overall, and it's the complaint that most people give with McFarlane's storytelling, and I think me and you have talked about this flushed in private, is that he narrates what we're seeing. He over narrates. And it's not a huge problem because like as somebody like we're all people that have consumed stories our entire lives. So like you come to a point where you can just kind of block some of that over narration out. But it's my only complaint, and it's a very tiny complaint.
Yeah, some of the stuff is so good that, in my opinion, in terms of the fight scenes, that it could be just nothing, right? It could just be
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking exactly the same. Like most of these fighting scenes doesn't need any words.
100%. I mean, the onomatopoeia works, right? Like the doom, 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 because it's just giving us a sense that it's driving him crazy while he's battling him. But yeah, you don't need most of the words on these pages because the art is so dynamic and action packed. Just read everything in his voice. Oh my God. I can't even do it. If you ever listen to Rob Liefeld's podcast or Observations, his impression of Todd is like
so good.
It's so good. He's like, "Hey man, there doesn't seem to be any humanity left in the body." Like every time I do it, I just turn into
what's an X-Force, bud? I lose it every time he says that.
Yeah, it's so good.
X-Force, bud.
Oh man,
amazing.
But if you now Andrew just ruined this for me because now I'm like looking at the words and I'm like, oh God, Todd's saying it. But man, the use of shadow, like he shadows, and I know I want to look at this digitally to see how it's different, but the way that they use the shadows on Lizard's face and just highlighting that where he highlights the eyes and the teeth, it's so menacing. It's so menacing. Also, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but Todd loves the use of seagulls in New York City. There's not a lot of seagulls in downtown New York. It's all pigeons.
Oh, and let's be honest, these are very majestic seagulls.
Look at this panel. I mean, that is that's the bald eagle of seagulls right there.
Yeah.
He didn't go with a silhouette. He went with the full detailed one.
He did. It's actually a pretty good seagull too. It's like a dove seagull, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So now, this transition's great. Kind of reminds me of the Alan Moore transition where it would be like, like the bat symbol goes into a different picture. But I do love this, and he's probably taking some inspiration from Watchmen because Watchmen and Gibbons did that a lot, where it would be like a transitional panel into the same type of thing. It's just, I don't know.
It's very cinematic, right? Like,
it is.
And you see that in movies all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And so she's done with the night. And I actually, the more I think about Mary Jane, it made me feel there were two perspectives to the story. And even though she has no clue what's going on, like you're reading this and you're like, all right, well, hopefully Spider-Man will be home soon. It kind of gives you that hope that she's going to have, that she wants to, she wants to bang it out tonight. And, she's hoping Peter's home when she gets home. And, she says cuddle, we all think the same thing, but, and except where is she coming out of? This is not a nightclub. This is like a random apartment building. Anyway, eyes and teeth reminiscent of Venom, very much so. Except, and that's the difference with this story, right? You could say, it's very Venom reminiscent, sure, but this is a mindless creature that does not know what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Calypso, or the mysterious person behind this, stops the lizard from eating him. And his candles, by the way, some of the best candles ever in a comic book. Let's just, oh, there we go. Look at those candles. So sick. But and there's Flush and Naj both pointed it out. Kids may love chains, but Todd loves capes. And that's some Batman stuff right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Face it, Tiger.
And then there is like the first two words on the top left corner.
Up here or here?
Yeah, there.
Evil blows in the darkened halls.
Oh no, not that page. That's a different page. There was something funny. Not that.
On par with Bernie Wrightson's candles, yes. And speaking of Bernie Wrightson, just plugging my video, that is the worst performing video of all time on this channel. Please watch it later on tonight.
On that last page, you can see he also, if you look at the very bottom, he's got the rain falling through, but he also drew the water tower structure all the way through. Like, so you can see right at the bottom, you can see the little angle. Like,
yep. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so it goes down.
That's interesting to me. I don't know why, but he seemed to I don't know how he did the backgrounds, I guess, but yeah.
Unless they're paste ups. Is it possible that the panels are paste ups?
I don't think they are, but he just the detail, like he's drawing through, for effect, and it works pretty well. I like that.
It's funny. I would never have known until maybe the last couple of years about how he did the rain with the scratching, but you can clearly see in the black that's not white ink. That's he's taken something and scratching the rain in. And Todd's rain is pretty great. It really gives it a good aesthetic.
Yeah.
To it gives you a good feel of atmosphere.
Was he using an embossing tool, or what was he using? Because
I don't know, but I imagine whatever he was using was just scratching it in. Okay. When I eventually have him on this channel, we'll have to ask him.
Well, all of his rainy scenes were amazing.
Mm-hmm. And his use of he likes drenching Spider-Man in everything, blood, rain, whatever he can find him, he'll drench him in it. He's in a pile of garbage, so who knows what kind of homeless urine is in that pile and whatnot. Sorry, everybody, this is who I am. I'm assuming that he uses a fountain pen with no ink for scratches. Some people use X-Acto knives too, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's got a weird property to it. It's like if you look close at some of them, they're very circular.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of implies.
Yeah,
I don't know. It could be the fountain pen. That's nothing, but yeah, it's weird though because it does have that spatter quality.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. We'll have to.
Yeah, his debris is just epic, right?
Oh God, some of the best debris.
Yeah, he's just sitting in this trash pile, and it's just like, I don't know how he does it. He just kind of makes it work.
And when we get to the end, the last issue, the explosion is just fantastic after that. So now Mary Jane's like, in the cab, and she's thinking about Peter. but you know, we don't know what she's not going out again yet, but she will. Peter's curled up in a pile of garbage in an alley. By the way, also I'd like to dispel the myth of New York City alleys. They don't really exist, unfortunately. Been searching for them since I was a kid. I never found any of them.
Yeah, also the other Felix is on that page as well.
Oh, that's right. Felix is.
Where is he?
It's on the taxi sign there. Yeah,
That's right.
Oh, here is he.
Yeah.
So if anybody's unfamiliar with the story about the Felix the cat, Todd was up in Vancouver. I think it was at a signing, and he met. I think it was a military vet who said he doesn't read comics anymore because they don't make Felix the cat comics, and he enjoyed that conversation so much, and that guy left such an impression. He's like, oh, I'm gonna put Felix the cat in my comics, and then
I think, to be more accurate, the guy was a veteran.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And he said that he only collects. He asked him, "Oh, do you read comics?" He said he only collects things with Felix the cat on them.
Yeah,
and then he said to him, "If I put Felix the cat in my comic, would you collect it read it?" Then he said yes. So he started adding that to all of his issues.
You know, it's so interesting because like that story, let's say I knew about that about 25 years ago because I started noticing it, but because there was no internet, like it was like a telephone game of like what the origin of that was. And I remember originally it was like the urban myth was that he was friends with a homeless person, and the homeless person liked Felix the cat, but it was just like a vet. It was a military vet. Homeless urine is the best description I ever heard. Well, that's what I'm here for. So yes, he's covered in urine and whatnot. The darkness. First of all, the darkness of the costume. I always like the coloring on this, whether it was Todd and it wasn't on this issue, but they used a darker red on this, and maybe it's the paper, but it pops so much more.
No, that paper, on the video, just we're not getting the full fidelity, obviously, but like that looks way better than the digital.
Yeah,
it just looks. Yeah, that color just looks amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It truly is. I always loved, and I know it's been talked about, but one of the things that always stood out to me on Todd Spider-Man is not just the fingers, the joints in the fingers. It's like a double jointed knuckle or something like that. And he's always done that. And I absolutely, it's just like, it's so pleasing when I see it. It feels like it was always meant to be. And we get this is pretty cool. Todd clearly wanted to draw, an ode to the origin. So he gets to do that on this 2 pages.
Yeah.
We get Todd's version of the origin. And I'd forgotten about this. And rereading this and seeing him write the origin, I'm like, all of a sudden I want to see more Todd Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. He reintroduced the origin in his own drawing. So probably that was like kind of a moment for him. Like he's going to draw the panel when Peter gets the bite and so on. It was really nice to see.
Well, I think this whole thing, I mean, hey, Spawn is, it is what it is, right? But I think if I had my way, it would be like he'd be doing some of these characters, right? Like, I'd love to see what he would do with some of these characters, and it just there's nothing like Todd, like in terms of just I mean, this is like we're not going to see this again, right?
No, nothing like it.
So
when you said that, the first thing I thought of was I'd love to see Todd do Carnage. Carnage, and I think he's talked about that is like he would do a Spidey Venom team up if Marvel didn't want him, if he couldn't do a Spawn Spidey team up, he said he would love to do Spidey teaming up with Venom against Carnage. And like, come on, who wouldn't want to see? He got to draw some very unique and a lot of B characters in the Spider-Man universe. We got to see him do Hobgoblin and Green Goblin, but like Carnage and Doc Ock are the only two he didn't do in a story. And he didn't, obviously he was gone before Carnage got created, but those are just the two that I can think of.
I'm pretty sure he would have done a great Carnage with all his,
Oh yeah. There's
the
there's your call out again. Both of you
uh,
called out the
Right.
very
yeah.
Spawn Batman like cape, and so Mary Jane is deciding she's getting home. He's waking up from. I always love these bubbles, and then the last page of this is really what moves this story into like a different headspace, and it's that.
Hmm.
It's that. I mean, I as a whatever I was, 11 years old, reading this, I'm like, wait, what? Why is he alive and why is half of his head missing? I don't think I conceptualized what happened to Craven until later on. You know, I didn't realize he committed suicide, put a gun in, blew his head off. But that splash page is mind blowing to me.
Details, lots of details in it as well.
Yeah, and
Small details.
maybe also like there's some. It's very interesting to see the lizard kind of domestically attached to Craven, like it's a pet.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. You're like, oh, are they just gonna like resurrect everybody in this whole, and just Royal Rumble it out or what? Yeah.
right, right. But I guess maybe that's one of the things that Todd wanted to do. He's like, I never got to draw Craven, and we
Mm.
know, and for anybody that doesn't know, the spaghetti webs actually come from uh, an image that Mike Zeck drew, and Mike Zeck was the artist for the Craven the Last Hunt, or at least the cover artist. I think he did the interiors also. So like this also might be just an homage to Mike Zeck and Craven's Last Hunt, just in general.
Mm.
I'd like to see Todd, Doc Ock, Carnage. Seems like a softball considering what Todd does well. Yeah, I mean, he's only done one published image of Doc Ock, and that's that Marvel Tales cover. I'd love to
Mm.
see what he did in a full storyline.
Which what was that about Mike Zeck again? It was
Okay, so Mike, hold on. I'm going to get it. You two talk about this real quick. It's right on the shelf.
okay. Yeah, I don't know. At this point of the story, I had no clue where they were kind of going. I thought that it was pretty much they were going to just resurrect everyone and just
All right.
into the dirt. So I don't know.
So Todd actually talked about this in one in the book, The Devil's in the Details, or whatever it's called. But a 1981 superhero print on the Trail of the Lunatic by no, I'm sorry, not Mike Zeck, Michael Golden.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. It's Michael Golden. Yeah.
I got my Michaels mixed up. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
bad Dave. But
I thought you were making another point. That's why I was kind of like, oh, I never heard about Mike Zeck being.
yeah, I just said the wrong Michael. But that's the origins of the spaghetti webs right there. And I guess
Oh,
yeah, that's
is
what
that the original?
yeah, this is the print. This is just the print from 1981. Michael Golden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah.
That's amazing to know where they came from.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. But yeah, I guess I was just saying Mike Zeck. Yeah, I got my Michaels. Okay, I'll go away.
There's too many Michaels. Let's just cut down on the amount of Michaels.
That's right.
I need to interrupt you before you continue with the other two issues because I'm going to leave. It's 4:13 here.
Oh my God!
I'm just going to go try to get some sleep. And I thank you again for the opportunity. And I'm going to watch the rest of the stream tomorrow.
Okay.
So enjoy it and nice to meet you. And have a lovely evening. It's evening there, right?
Yes, and you enjoy your morning. Get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all the chat for joining us today as well.
And if
sorry if I don't seem normal, I am really, I need some sleep. So my English is stumbling with my words.
Go get some sleep, and everybody give Naj a follow on Instagram at Naj Mansour #1.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, bye Naj. All right, let's get back to this. So let's get us small again. We don't need too much of us. There we go. So this is yes, this is the issue that Todd colored, and I mean, some people cite this as it's so different. It's so different, you know. And I don't know. Okay. The colors. What do you think about the colors? Like, it's hard for me to put it into words what my eyes see, especially in this first splash page. but the lighting, it's noticeable in the lighting on the faces.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to make of his colors. I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's okay. I think it works, but
Mhm.
I'm not. I think that his colors are probably the least impressive part of the whole
Yeah.
deal, in my opinion. But that's But then again, you're going up against his inks and his pencils, and
And
I
he's
mean,
probably second guessing himself, but I think it's the lighting. Dave said, yeah, the lighting is bad. It's spotty.
right.
Yeah, Craven's. I mean, I will say what he did with kind of making Craven as pale as he is. I think that works because if we're to believe that he's back from the dead, then he would have no pigment in his skin anyway.
He has a very Lobo quality.
Yeah, it does. He does.
I mean, it looks like Lobo to me, but yeah. But yeah, no, it works, I guess, but it is different. You notice it right off the bat. I mean, like if you were to gloss over part 4, like the indicia there or whatever, it's like you wouldn't notice like what the hell is going on in this issue in terms of color.
Sure, it's bright. It is definitely looking at this now, obviously knowing what we know and having a little more insight into our comics than we did, 20 years ago. Yeah, it definitely felt off. But the story itself, like it was really interesting to see where he went with this, making us think that maybe Craven was back from the dead, and Spidey truly has absolutely no fucking clue what's going on. And then we get our first look at Calypso, and yeah, it's just interesting. I never thought about it until this read through that they don't mention who this is, and it's interesting and done purposefully, I think. Um, do we know? Okay, so I was wondering, is this done on purpose or is this an error in printing to have a black and white panel with just a little bit of color? Like, I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing here with this panel here specifically.
In the digital version, the there that Lobo blue is actually in the back there.
This is okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to put your thing, but where Calypso is in that bottom right panel, like that entire panel is blue with white highlights.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's not because yours is like all black and white, right?
Yeah, this thing's almost all black and white. There's a
Yeah,
tiny bit of blue.
so it's all blue. So however this was done, there's definitely some differences.
Yeah.
Also, her hair.
Uh-huh.
If you go up to the top panel where her hand is,
Oh yeah.
her bracelets are blue and some of her dreads are blue. And yeah, so it's a totally different. I don't know if they just retouched it or what the hell they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say what and Andrew brings up a good point. His composition, drawing, and inking are all at full throttle. It seems like he took some approach with the same approach with the coloring, and maybe should have backed off a bit. Yeah, he's going full throttle, but I will say this: what he was trying to do, I'm into like this this panel here with the shadow casted on the wall. Like you're like looking down on a fire escape at like all these weirdos in the alley, but there should be a big fire there, and it's a very small, what I think might be a fire, but I'm not sure. But it's interesting. I like what he was going for, but yeah, I think he should have backed off a little bit. Back off there, bud. Um, and then Mary just gets home and she's like, you know what? Fuck it, let's just do it. Let's keep going. She finds the bag, she finds the key, and she just keeps going.
Yeah, yeah, she's puking and rallying here.
Yeah. Hey, look, we've all been there before, right?
Yeah.
Some of us, maybe some harder than others. Not proud.
On yours, is she pink? Yeah, she is pink. So yeah, they're not totally different, but they are a bit different.
Yeah. But I will say, like, the horrifying what Peter's being driven through and what he's going through right now, like, I never felt at any of the times that we were reading stuff like this, it never felt that the stakes were high. And this, Todd comes in with this series and he's just like, I'm gonna put Peter through it.
Yeah, let's also back up at one page and appreciate the where like this. There's that could be the spider booty from issue 8, where she's getting in the cab.
Oh, the spider booty, the bottom, Adam's apple, the apple bottom. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Todd was a butt guy. Clearly was.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and you got to
definitely.
appreciate that. I do like the way that this panel also, like the lizard's just all teeth, all teeth. Love it. Um, but yeah, I'm interested. Is there, and nobody ever answered, so I'm assuming the answer is no. But is there anybody in here that did read this that had never read this before? Um, Once again, no judgment at all. It is more of a I'm interested to hear the perspective, but
Yeah, and full disclosure, the first time I read this was probably a year ago.
yeah,
So, I wasn't too hardcore into comics, like, as a kid. So, yeah.
well,
So that's why I said, when I was reading it and the pacing and the fight and all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, if I was a kid reading this, I'd be into it big time.
hmm hmm
Just thinking back, right?
yeah, and it's still like I said, like there's we collectively, me and you and everybody in the chat, we've all read a lot of Spider-Man, but like since this, I can't think of much more any more Spider-Man that goes edgy or even comes close to being this dark. Especially with you could call Lizard an A-list character or maybe an A- list character because he doesn't have a lot of depth to him. But Calypso, really? And I love what he did. Oh, well, we got to always shout out the Splatterhouse ad because this game was wild. TurboGrafx 16.
Wow.
Yeah, only had one friend that owned this, and he was a very wealthy. It was his dad was a lawyer, so he bought him all these video games. I was just like, all right, cool. Yeah. So now Mary Jane's out partying. She did change her clothes. She's wearing more of a very candy striper. She looks like a goddamn candy cane, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is just horrific attire for sure.
And even for the '90s, she's literally like.
You're led to believe she's like a fashion model, and then it's like, what are you doing, bud?
Seriously, I don't get it. But hey, look, maybe she was hanging out in Greenwich Village where the fashion was, or the meatpacking district where the fashion was a little different. Like there was more chances being taken. But the Doom, just like when you just you see it sporadically and then it just comes on again and there's so much that you have no clue of what's happening, and then you get a little. Once again, you get the backstory. So Todd gets to give us a little backstory on this person that hasn't been named, but we know that she was Craven's lover, and then
Yep.
she grew away from Craven. She didn't need him anymore.
And I love the whole like the transition, like so again with like cinema, right? Like you see a lot of this, these filters get applied, so you know that you're going back in the past, right? I like how he does it. It's a lot of silhouettes.
It's probably the best use of color too in this
Yeah,
book.
great. Yeah, it's awesome color. I mean, like pink, for me, it's just pinks and red and black for the most part with a gray background. But
we get some bats in here. This is like we got to point it out. Ode to Jim Rugg, full moon zine, right there.
Right. Yeah, there are no clouds behind that.
That is
behind that sun or that moon.
Yeah. It is probably the best use of color, and I just the flashback transition, from her face here and then face here, and then this is such a cool panel too. This it just feels like you're really putting Spider-Man through it. I read all
onslaught. Yeah, he's just being hit.
Yeah, it is an onslaught. I read all 5 issues before bed last night. I swear I thought I was going to see Doom. It's maybe it'll be in your good dreams and your bad night. I don't know. Uh-oh. Nope, I'm not sneezing. Yeah, this page is a little bit of a mess. I don't know what the hell happened here with the coloring. This thing, I don't know. The purple Doom, I think, is really what sells this short. If you made this like pink or something a little bit lighter, but
Oh yeah, they in that version, it's really dark. On mine, it's like a sort of I want to say navy blue. It's a little bit lighter than that, but yeah,
huh,
they definitely made changes to the Doom.
it looks like I'll have to get maybe if I can get the newer trade paperback and see what it looks like. But I always like this panel too, even though the color is not my favorite thing. But like, he almost looks a little bit more human than he does, even despite the tongue. But there's something in the way that I don't know. To me, that's like a little bit of Kurt Connors right there, being a.
Yeah, and that looks so much better than mine. Mine looks horrendous. It's like a light green and a light purple.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that looks so much better.
Amber said the 90s were a hell of a drug. I agree. It is much okay. So it's much clearer in the trade. Much clearer in the trade. And then he breaks free of the ropes. We get some more knockdown, drag out between the lizard, and then all of a sudden there's a gas main that gets broken, which I doubt it would be liquid gas, but
I thought that was probably one of the clumsiest things. It's like this happens to be some gas lines ruptured. I don't know.
Yeah, with like some type of very flammable liquid gasoline, not gas itself, but hey, it's okay. It is still sloppy. Yeah. He was talking about the previous one we were talking about. All right, so then comes the explosion. Where is it? Oh, come on. There we are. And there we go. I do see, this is true. This is where you really need Mary Jane in the story, just because you've got him saying right before the explosion. Also very cinematic. Very cinematic. I forgot about, there was a letter I wanted to read. And I don't know if I passed it or if it's in the last issue. Let's see. It's not here. Ever since like we started discovering that certain creators or comic famous people were writing letters into the end of these issues, I start looking at that stuff now.
Yeah. They'll go like an unnamed dude or whatever, and that's like Eric Larson or somebody.
Right. Okay, so it's gonna be in the last issue that we'll look at it, which is this. And my buddy Grit City Russ, Josh, did send me. He said something earlier today to me about this being low key one of his favorite covers, and I think it's very underrated.
Oh yeah. No. If this is your favorite cover, I don't think you're. Yeah. No, it's a good one. It's debris. It's Peter just fucked up.
Yeah.
And I don't see a reason.
And we never get to see him that trashed on a cover.
Yeah, he just looks like hell.
He does.
And if you look like his little squirrel flapper there is just torn to shit. Like,
yeah, it's true. It's true. Look at this. I mean, and I wonder if this is a low key homage that to ASM 33, which is the one where he discovers he's more powerful than he thought, and it's the one where the debris is all falling on him. So
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, classic cover. I believe it should be a Johnny Romita cover, but this is part 5, the last part, and it's what is the white? I'm on a phone. What is the white? Smoke? Are we talking about this? Or I don't know what we're talking about, Amber. That's white. That's white. That's white. That's white. That's white also. I'm white.
It's smoke. It's rain. It's homeless urine. It's
homeless. Yeah, it definitely broke a sewer line. It's not just homeless urine. It's all of New York City's urine falling on him. It's spilling on him. I should say.
It's fecal shit. There's everything.
So he reverses the layout and he goes with this, like the first issue, and then goes right into this amazing splash page. And what do they say, Flush? What do kids love?
Love chains.
Kids love chains. Exactly.
Chains, yeah.
And we've got the beginning of Kids Love Chains right here. This is the first time I can remember Todd doing chains in the foreground and the background.
I'm curious. I'll be curious. We're gonna get there, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts were on the chain, the use of the chains.
It's very yeah. I had the same thing. I was very conflicted about it in this issue when I reread it. But so then Mary Jane, we get Mary Jane just in a taxi for most of this issue. I mean, most of this story, and there goes the fire department to respond to the explosion. He's as much of a spider in this panel than than anywhere in this book. Like he's in the rafters, just
Well, and not to be crude, but like if everyone here has probably tried to kill a spider or an insect or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And how just how they're so resistant, like to damage, like just from trying to crush them, a certain way. And so you just imagine like that power sort of being bestowed on him, like, and he's, this thing blows up and there's just a shitload of everything going on, but he's somehow,
he's tough to kill.
Yeah, he's alive, right? Like it's similar to that.
So there you go. So Tripp just said the cover reminds me of No Way Home scene where Green Goblin brings the pillars down on Spidey, and which also seemed like an homage to the ASM issue reference, and also is in the first Spider-Man movie, Homecoming, right? Yeah, Homecoming. The Vulture brings the thing down, and it's a direct homage to that ASM 33 issue. So there's definitely always going to be, homages and overlying themes. And one of Spidey's overlying themes is, yes, he's resistant to a lot of people trying to crush him, and it's always going to be rubble on him that tries to crush him. And Ryan's inner child loves chains. Kids love chains. One of the greatest things of all time, and I will never not say that. Where there, so let's see, what was that, issue 2? So let's put these right next to each other, and let's see how. So sick, so sick. Like, I would love to have a poster of just the two silhouette, the two profiles of this looking back at each other. It's so cool to see that. Issue number 2 is just a little piece of hair, little patch of hair coming through, and then like the whole mask is just destroyed.
Yeah, and I don't know. Do you have a sense of how comics treated battle damage prior? Because I like nothing jumps out at me as like, oh yeah, like this character is just beat to shit, like.
Yeah, Hulk's the only one, but it's self-damage. It's like he's turning into Hulk, he's ripping shit up. But you're right, like Wolverine might be the only one that I think Silvestri did some of it, but it's around the same time. So you got two guys that come up around the same time doing the same type of thing, but nobody got messed up. Like, so I don't know. I would love to see Todd draw Doctor Strange versus Bronze Age Dracula versus Spawn. All those capes, it would just be capes everywhere. Yeah. It would have to call it capes. They would just call it capes. What I loved also, everybody's interpretation of it was different, but the one thing that stands out for the battle damage the most, obviously, with McFarlane and Spider-Man is the shattered eyes, because they're, what are they made out of? What is this? I love this though.
Yeah, it's not a fabric tear, right?
No, it's like plexi.
It's got some property to it that it's kind of like if they treated it as Peter was wearing glasses or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
So we got some good call outs. Superman, Death of Superman, which came out after this or around the same time. But you're right, Ryan. George Perez did it in Crisis, and we all know that Todd was a huge George Perez fan. So,
rest in peace, George Perez. But
and that's the thing. Like, there you go, one source, and that's an inspiration for Todd. So that makes sense. You get inspiration from all these things, and I just love this page. So Lizard's back alive. Calypso. I want to keep calling her Callisto, and then I want to keep calling her Callista Flockhart, and then it's just a completely different tangent we're on. But
now we're on Harrison Ford
and his earring. Yeah. So we'll stay off of that. But Doom begins again, and the coloring on this is it should never have really changed it, but we're back to normal on this, and everything looks fantastic. But like you were saying, you've got some full page splashes with these panels, and he was just doing some interesting stuff in this book.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I feel like that page that we're just looking at right there, that is such a like foreshadowing of Image. Like, I feel like Image Comics did a lot of this type of stuff right here.
Oh yeah.
Emulating this, right? Like, it could be any one of the Image guys, right? But I feel like
Stephen Platt did it a lot. I feel like Platt did it a ton. Oh yeah, there we go. Brian said that Byrne did some of the heavy battle damage on Wolverine in the Claremont Byrne run on X-Men. That also makes sense. See, like the couple of people that are citing this is like the people that would have inspired Todd anyway. So it makes sense. This page is sick too. I mean, it's very much, what's going on the cover, just a different, he's pissed. He's pissed. But we never really get to see Spidey like this. Like, he's pissed, he's fucked up, and he's still fighting. He's still alive. You can't kill him. What a killer ad.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where he's always fighting whatever, right? Like these thugs, street thugs, or maybe he's fighting like one of the villains or whatever. But yeah, he doesn't get thrashed up like this, and you can imagine. Yeah, this is the right reaction. Like, it's not just like a happy-go-lucky, aw shucks kind of thing, right?
Right, right.
It's like, I'm done with this shit, Like,
that would be funny if the panel was the same, right? Nothing changed except the word Bubble said, aw shucks. It would have a totally different feeling to it, and it would not be this. It would not be a.
You know what I mean? There's no Peter Parker shtick here, right?
No, and that's one of the things that really does stick out in this is that it is a very shtickless Peter and Spidey book, and I think that's why it's so enjoyable.
I honestly think if he could have just kept going, like if we could have got a real horror version of Peter, like that would have been amazing.
It would have. I think this is the closest we'll ever get.
Yeah.
Unless Marvel.
As long as he's not dancing like Toby, yeah. I'll second that.
Yeah, that was. Well, we've all made mistakes, and Sam Raimi has tried to distance himself from that movie as much as possible. Yeah, a lizard looks, and now this issue he looks more like a dinosaur. So I'm digging all the different iterations or interpretations in my brain of what I'm seeing from.
Yeah. When you said originally he was kind of like a cat, I was thinking dinosaur for sure.
Yeah,
like he had a lot of dino qualities going on.
Definitely,
But he's also got this really messed up tail. It's almost like a Doc Ock kind of arm.
Yeah. There's
long.
Yeah. Look at it's good 12 feet, 13 feet. I mean, it's Komodo dragon size. So, and now, of course, Mary Jane still in the cab. Maybe we get a full Mary Jane cab issue one of these days. It's just her. That would be a very interesting one shot. It's just Mary Jane taking transit in New York City, worrying about Peter, and she has no clue what's going on.
Yeah, no, this is what I imagine. Like someone could take that idea and just do a manga, right? Like people do baseball mangas and all this stuff. Let's just do a taxi cab manga. Like just
there we go.
People riding around and shit's going on. Shit's blowing up all around them. They're just completely oblivious.
Yeah, they're like, I got to get to my meeting in downtown. Like, just go a different way, and just oblivious. I love how much the Violator shows in Todd's full teeth lizard panel. Yeah, That's a good point out there, Tyler. There's a
Oh yeah,
lot of
for sure. A lot of stuff in Spawn, I'm sure, is just coming like straight out of this for sure.
yeah, unused ideas or just different iterations of ideas. But yeah, some very so here we get towards the end of the fight, and uh he jumps up away from Lizard into the rafters where, clearly Spawn has been hanging out all day, and he left a bunch of chains around because they're talking about two different characters that are in the same city. And so the Lizard lunges at him. Cool silhouette. Kind of looks like a dragon. Actually, probably purposefully looks like a dragon. And what does Spider-Man do? He just throws chains because kids love chains. And what is Spider-Man going to do? He has webs? No, chains. And we get a very interesting thing. I don't think this works. I just don't. It looks cool.
This is like this reminded me a lot of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I've got the high ground now. And then he just like instead, like Peter was like, yeah, I'm just gonna throw some chains at your ass and you're gonna die.
And Dave pointed out it's Hellraiser vibes. Yeah, I mean, if Spider-Man was Pinhead, this would make a lot of sense. But
you don't really get any. It's like, you threw chains at him to break his neck, and then he's just kind of hanging there. I don't know the story about what went into that, but
you know what went into that? He watched Die Hard, because that's what he tries to do to Carl. He wraps him in the chains and he throws him, which doesn't even kill him. But I think that's where he got it.
Yeah, that's the guy, the big German guy,
Yep.
That he's fighting. Yeah, it's a great. That scene works though.
It does. It does. It very much does. This doesn't. But you know what? I don't think it's about really killing the Lizard, because we know that the Lizard is not going to die. But it was a kind of like is a weird way to end it. But Andrew just said his Mary Jane Cab Dojinshi issue is coming soon. Send it to P.O. Box 9477 Munhall.
Yeah. I felt that coming.
Yeah, you knew it. It's pretty much 50. Full disclosure: 50% of my discussions with Flash is about cartoonist kayfabe and using our language to trope each other with that stuff. But so yeah, Lizard gets strung up by a bunch of chains, and then Calypso just explodes and disappears. So most comics can't stick the landing, and this one stuck most of the landing except the last 2 pages. She literally explodes. She explodes and disappears.
Yeah, it's very unclear what happens. Now, I like the whole idea though, like that there's not a true resolution.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised. What surprises me, and we've talked about this before, but it's like that element is something that is in some of the greatest books or stories that have come out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you do leave and I'm not saying this is like, oh yeah, this story is just the best story or whatever, but like those kinds of stories where they just leave it open-ended and you can think about like, oh, maybe there is a next installment, or maybe it's just you leave it there, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if she's dead or
who she even was.
Right.
I mean, it's part of the head trip of this story is that we don't know who she was, and that she just went after Spider-Man and then just disappeared. So it works for this. It really does.
Yeah, and if you think like the Venom story, which I think is just absolute trash in my opinion, but it's a lot of this like, who is this like this dude stalking me or whatever, and it's like, but then they eventually just sort of resolve it, right? And it's less interesting.
It is.
It's a new character and they take it somewhere, that's fine. But it's just, in this case, I think it works where you just don't.
And Venom had the thing going for him that most characters don't, is Venom looked awesome. So like it's eye candy. It's super eye candy, where this actually you feel like you've been through it with Peter. You do. So Brian said he was looking to run a Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man today, and number 5 has some heavy battle damage Spidey. So that's cool. I'll have to check that out. He sent me a pic, so I'll maybe.
There's so much Spider-Man. I mean, I'm sure somebody's bound to be an expert at, on knowing all the covers and what goes on. But it's just there's such a huge body of work. It's hard to know, for me anyway.
So we get the last look at the chains. Then Spidey's home, and I'm sure Mary Jane, had a panic attack when she saw that. It's probably he's just torn up, and then we get the last page with the continuing theme of rising. Rise, the fires of Gotham will rise, to rise above it all. And then so we know Lizard's still alive, and I think that's just it's a great way to end it, and not really knowing who we faced, and but knowing that it was a hell of a battle.
Do you think that's the intention, or do you think it was like, yeah, we're going to come back to this? Because
I think it was the intention. But there's only really a couple of people that probably know.
Right.
I don't know if he. It's very interesting, and I should. You know what? I am going to write this down, because I want to ask Todd if, when I have him on this channel, is did he see himself when he was living in this moment, when he was Todd at that age? Did he see himself continuing on this book for years, or did he realize like he was on borrowed time with Marvel when he started this?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong though, right? Didn't he? I felt like he was kind of like semi-retired, right? Like
that was after. It was he took the break. I think it was in between Marvel and Image is when he was semi-retired, or maybe it was. There was a point when he was semi-retired. I just don't remember when it was, and I'm sure somebody's going to chime in the comments.
Yeah, because there's got to be some stakes, right? Like he's still telling Marvel, like, I'm not going to work for you, and by the way, DC, I'm not going to work for you either. But then, but there is some kind of like retirement aspect.
There was, and it's interesting. Like I don't think, and I'm sure I could find interviews or something like that that talks about what the stuff he had planned. But I don't know. I don't remember ever hearing him talk about what he had planned past what we got from him. Those 15 issues. But the what I thought was, and it's interesting. We're all critics, right? We're humans. So by nature, we're going to criticize. But the letter that I was thinking about that I wanted to point out was this first letter in Crawl Space, and it's from the owner, Lance Gueck, or Gueck, Gueck. He is and was the owner, and maybe still owner of Golden Age Collectibles up in Vancouver, Canada, which still exists today, and it's like one of the biggest comic stores in Western Canada. But it's very interesting because you would imagine he criticizes a lot of stuff in here. It's a very long letter, but it's like, whoa, dude, you really have it out for Todd. It's just like, he's like, rise above it all. Frankly, this phrase is getting on my nerves. It seems a little out of place the first time, and I easily guess we'll be seeing it on the next 3 issues. And, he does compliment some of his art, but it's literally a page by page critique of one of the issues.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me as much. I kind of view it as that whole, like, with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing.
Exactly. It's comics.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It's got to have some repeating things, It's.
Yeah,
but
it didn't ruin it for me. It was there's only like a couple mentions of it, so I don't.
Yeah, it didn't. Nothing about it. Nothing. There's like nothing overall about this story really bummed me out or felt annoying or anything like that. Like even the color on issue 4 didn't really stop me from enjoying this. Amber said the only interview I had seen that he talked about how he loved how Marvel was constantly sending him letters on how he is destroying Spider-Man's webs. Yeah, there was a lot of that he talked about when he took Amazing Spider-Man, and they would get all this stuff like, why are you doing this to Spider-Man, blah blah blah, and he was right. He knew what he was doing.
Some people are really attached to that shit. Like, and hey, that's cool. I mean, I know some people have been doing this in terms of consuming the content for a hell of a lot longer than I have. But
Yeah.
again, I like to see some experimental, stuff. Like but there are a lot of people that, like, every time, just like we talked about the David Cho goes and does the Frank Miller panel with Jock.
Yeah.
And people are asking Frank Miller, like, "Oh, are you going to do like Batman All Star again, or All Star Batman again?" It's just people are, they're so attached to these, and that's cool, that they're attached to it in some fashion. But it's like, yeah, like, okay, someone's doing something different, like, embrace it. It's
well, if we never had people doing stuff different, we go back to a guy like, in our lifetimes, a guy like Miller, and then go to McFarlane, like. If we didn't have people challenging what comic books were in the mainstream, we would not have comic books anymore. It just wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be this stuff because it would be the same shit over and over and over. And independent stuff's different. That is literally, independent stuff is there to challenge superheroes. But we're talking about superhero books. You need people in the system to challenge the norms.
Right, yeah, and like the open ending thing. I was in a class with Scott Snyder, and he was talking about his back and forth with Greg Capullo and editorial for the Court of Owls. And editorial, they almost didn't print the book because Batman doesn't solve a case, right?
Right.
Like, they had a problem with that. And that's like one of the best aspects of the whole book is it's exactly like Torment. It's like, yeah, there's an open-ended thing here, and it's it's a fun ride, but you don't need to marry yourself to, like, just because Detective Comics solved a case every issue.
Yeah,
you don't need to, right? Like, it's so, but there's a lot of that resistance. So
there is, and ultimately Marvel. We all know how this went. Marvel challenged him enough where he just pissed him off, and McFarlane said, "See ya," and that was that. And was that your dog?
Yeah, he's grumpy.
Is there anything in the chat? Anybody have any comments? Like, overall, did anybody not enjoy this? I mean, it's you. Look, I love Todd. This is a very pro Todd channel, but I'm always here to listen to people that don't like it. Have we discussed that ASM 316 covers actually an homage? That's the one with the MF Doom looking guy. He's wearing like an MF Doom mask. I think that's the Flash issue. But no, I mean, I think I've talked about it before, unless there's an older Flash issue. But this cover right here, I mean, this is, talk about one of the most homaged poses in all of. I mean, it is. This is more than ASM 300. Like, this has been homaged to death. I mean, shit, Clayton Crane made a career out of this pose. But
yeah, it's interesting what people latch onto.
It is.
I'm not hating on the cover or on ASM 300, but it is interesting that it tells you something about Todd's artwork, right?
It does, and his love of spiders. Sandy, we started at 7 p.m. Pacific, because 7 p.m. In Eastern, I would have been on for like the last 5 hours. What's your overall, like, have you read the ASM run and this run, or have you just read this run?
I've read some of the ASM. I assume you're just talking about the Todd.
Yeah.
Todd stuff. I have read some of it. I don't think I've read it all.
Yeah.
So I do have it. Just trying to look here.
There's some cohesiveness to it, but like the ASM run has, what it does have is it's got single issue, a lot of one-off single issue stories. But the Venom storyline is like the overlying, and then the assassination plot is the 6-issue arc, which Man, this stuff, this is his best work in my
I
opinion.
did read the assassination stuff.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's got nice little cast of characters, and Silver Sable. It's very interesting that Silver Sable was such a popular character Todd, um, for Todd's ASM run. Like she hops in and out a lot of different issues. Uh, Brian said it's super fun to read along with you guys and see everyone's passion and love for. Well, and I appreciate everybody for coming in and for everybody's willingness to do this. I'm gonna pick a book every month, and I think it would be fun to keep doing this. My inclinations to possibly go to Killing Joke next month may happen. I think that would be a fun one. It's a little bit of a, well, it's a very violent story. One of the best Batman stories, that most people look to, but I'm not set on that yet. Kayfabe definitely influenced me with that episode today.
I haven't watched it yet, so
It's great.
I'm a little behind, but yeah.
But I will be taking. I'm happy to take suggestions. I'm going to make a list. But I wanted to start off with Todd because when you see Todd, you buy Todd, but more so when you see Todd, you read Todd, and Todd is Tord, and Tord is the Lord. Any final thoughts on this, Flush?
No, I think it pushed it. I mean, he was already pushing it, right? But I think this is like it's a I don't know if I call it an easy read. It is, but it's also there's so much to take in. It's easy just kind of like slow roll, through it. So if you haven't read it, I mean, I definitely read it. It's not breaking the bank in terms of like story, right?
Yeah.
But I think the art and some of the choices that were made there, and just the overall insanity of the fight, right?
Yeah, it's never. It
feels like it represents a lot of stuff about I think what people miss about comics that in terms of their critique of modern comics, right? And you can critique all that '90s stuff too, right? But it just feels like a fun time. Even though there's a serious tone and all that kind of stuff, but it's just like, yeah, this is like know your audience, right? And Todd definitely knew who his audience was.
He did, and I will say this: I think for what we were getting from Spider-Man in like the way the tone of the stories, this broke some ground for getting a more mature Marvel storyline because DC was really like way ahead of the pack with that, where Marvel didn't really catch up. Like they did some stuff that was like Infinity Gauntlet was kind of darker, but this wasn't as gritty or as groundbreaking as Miller's stuff. But for the popcorn, it's kind of like it's like the popcorn crowd, like the mass consuming pop culture crowd. This is like what he wanted to do was like the Frank Miller, and then there you go, right there on the cover, it says the Legend of the Arachnite. So I haven't read any early X Factor yet, but I might personally do that, but I'm not sure that's going to be book club material. I am thinking Days of Future Past would be a fun one to do. Mr. No Love suggests Dark Knight Returns too.
Yeah, God Loves, Man Kills is another one.
Yeah,
it's fairly like you can.
That's a deep one. That's a deep discussion one.
Yeah.
And definitely one that I'm very willing to have, especially in a world that is constantly burning with shitty things happening. Andrew said it's for the uppies, exactly. Any Batman story would be fun to discuss. Yeah, I have plenty of ideas for Bat stories. But yeah,
there's so many of them. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, there is. Like you said, Court of Owls would be great because we're on we're getting a little bit more in the current era, and we're going with two guys that everybody kind of seemingly loves. I love Capullo and Scott Snyder. So
yeah, Greg Capullo is amazing. I mean, he's not Todd McFarlane, but I mean, Todd is his own beast, right?
He is. He is.
But yeah, Greg Capullo is like, as an artist, he's fantastic and super nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Like he runs circles around a lot of artists, and he's very humble. So
he is, and he's also a great guitar player too.
Right.
Death in the Family. Yeah, possibilities are endless. Batman, Predator. We will get to the point where I am going to require everybody to read the 3-part Batman Dracula, Red Rain, Crimson Mist, and Bloodstorm, because that is my favorite Batman story of all time. I also thought about Red Son Superman, which is also a classic. So the possibilities are endless, but I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. And big thanks to Naj, and a huge thanks to you, Flush. Finally getting to meet you face to face. And you know what, Tyler? You just got us. Next week we're doing Turok. But also, don't forget, hit the like, all that jazz. If you really like art and you're an art nerd, watch the episode I dropped today. I've got some fun stuff in the pipeline. Always just trying to like create some stuff, you know, throw something against the wall, see what sticks. You know, some of the Crumb issues I'd love to do Crumb, and maybe we'll do late night Crumb talk. Like we'll go even later. We'll do like late night, so that YouTube doesn't give me like the you know, the ban.
Yeah, I've read some Zap, and yeah, I mean, I think it's great, but yeah, it's like yeah, I think some people would.
Some of the best stuff to go through for Crumb that wouldn't destroy the, you know, the explicit content would be his sketchbooks and the Fantagraphics life drawings and stuff that he's done, because he would sit in diners and cafes and just draw people, and it, you know, but we can, you know, that'll be a fun one to do. And so yeah, Flush, thank you again. Naj, double thank you again, and thank you to everybody in the chat. And hit the like. I'm gonna oh, okay, there goes Flush. He just left. Even though I was going to tell him to stick around. But yes, here we go. We are going to close out the show with the way that we present the show, and that's going to be right here. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I'll see you on West Coast Wednesday. West Coast Avengers!